Hey everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Last Response. So the title of this episode is called The Past Doesn't Have to Last. It's easier said than done some days, don't get me wrong, and I struggle with it every day. But does it really have to last? I know people say go to therapy, go to counseling, whatever the case may be, whatever works for you. But in this discussion, we'll talk about some stuff. Whatever you guys want to talk about, leave a comment, leave a like. I'm not going to say subscribe because I'm starting out. But anyway, everybody's got a past. Some people's pasts are good, shared a loved one, met a loved one, whatever the case may be. But there's also the dark side of the past. Some people grew up having a rough childhood. I'll get into that later. Then there's other people, where going through what they went through as a child to where it catches up with them in their future. So if it's not checked, it can definitely come back. But that doesn't mean it has to last. Just recently, I'm not going to go to specifics, but going back to my intro, I did lose the love of my life and my stepchild I was out raising because of my past. Because the way I figured I would handle the situation was like, oh, I'll have a beer to numb the pain. But one beer turned into 2, and then 2 turned into 5, and you guys know where I'm going with this. But anyway, instead of talking about my problems or things that were bothering me, I decided to cope the feelings. And the person I was with, she was a really great person. She cared about me. She didn't drink, which is totally fine. But, instead of talking to her and trying to work things out or communicating, I decided I'm just going to cope my past. Or cope my problems, I should say. But if you have somebody in your corner like that who's willing to reach out to you or reach for you to see if you need help, don't be ashamed. Everybody's got things they struggle with every day. I still struggle with some of the stuff I'll get into later. But, so far I'm 5 months sober. Well, I guess 4, but almost 5. But, I can see clearly and think clearly. And I'm not saying that, it happened like that. I drank heavily from the age of 22 to freaking here I am, 34. And, all it did was really cause me a lot of pain, a lot of strain on my relationships. And, if I just talked to my spouse or talked to somebody, maybe things would end differently. But my pride got in the way. Typical guy thing. Oh, I don't need that. Therapy is not for me. Counseling's not for me. Or when the girlfriend or the wife or whoever you're with, boyfriend or girlfriend, no matter which gender, would try and reach out to you, and you guys would brush it off like me. And then finally, here you are, single or whatever your case may be, broken home. It's not fun. I came from a broken home, and I'll get more into it later on in the series if you guys stay with me. But long story short, going through foster home and the system and going through childhood trauma and all that stuff is not exactly something a child should have to experience. But the thing with experience is you're supposed to learn from it. And it's for me, I didn't really learn from it until now. Here I am staring down the barrel of 35, so I'm not good at math, but it's a long time. So the sooner you can get a hold of it, the better. And fast forward to the future. Whether you reach out for help or you don't, that's your personal decision. I'm not going to sit there and be like, you should do it, because it's not my job to tell you how to live your life. I started this podcast and YouTube series to help people similar to my situations, and maybe that way they don't feel alone or feel like they're going through something by themselves. Because I've been on the receiving end, where people would reach out to me, but I didn't really know what to give them advice about because I was living a life as a blur and not seeing things clearly. So if you can see things clearly and have that reckoning, or whatever you want to call it, it's good. It's healthy. And reaching out to people is healthy too. Speaking of reaching out to people, I had a really good counselor. Me and him were covering some good ground, talking about my childhood trauma that, like I said, I'll get into later in the series. And then, unfortunately, he passed away the day after Thanksgiving. So that shows you how short life can be sometimes. 1 minute you're spending Thanksgiving or whatever you want to spend with your families or boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. And then the next day or even that day, that's it. On to your next journey in life. So just take advantage of the time you do get to spend with those nearest and dearest to you, because you never know. You could you won't wake up, but the next day they could wake up and you're not there. Or that afternoon, you just go out for milk and then you get a phone call, or they get a phone call, I should say. So just take advantage of the time you do get to spend on this earth. Life's too short. I mean, I know there's some obligations that I have to fulfill on my end prior to my breakup with my spouse I was referring to. But, once all that's said and done, I'm going to try and live my life. I'm going to try and travel. And I really want to go skydiving, but, right now it's wintertime, and I don't think people want to go skydiving in the winter. But, I want to go skydiving. And I saw a video about people going bungee jumping at night. That seems like pretty legit. But, sorry. It's usually the case, you're never doing anything, and then people blow up your phone when you start doing stuff. So, but anyway, going back to living your life, like Mitch Locker, Suicidal Silence, used to say, live life hard. And so, he did live life hard. And then, once he had a daughter, and kind of mellowed down a little bit. And then, shitty thing is, he died in an accident. But, you just got to find time for yourself. And as husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, whoever's the audience, you're always doing something for somebody else, whether it's your significant other, your job, your kids. But that's why it's called last response. And I'll get back to that in a minute. But where do people find time for themselves, especially nowadays where prices of everything is going through the roof? Gas is ridiculous. I'm not really a political person, but I do notice that, prices fluctuate. But going back to the last response thing, I started this podcast, YouTube channel, whatever you want to refer to as for me, as a way to vent to people and tell them what I'm going through. Not much of the vlog, because I'm more of a person that helps others going through mental issues, not financial issues. That's your problem. I'm not going to help you with that. But I can give you advice about that. I'm not the smartest man when it comes to money, but, I know how to save money, and I'm pretty well off in my young age, if you guys want to call it that. But going back to the last response thing, me personally, I'm a first responder. I'm a firefighter for a certain government agency. And, it's hard to keep relationships and make plans, because with my schedule, right now it's feasible because it's 4/10s, which means 4 days on, 4 days on for 10 hours a day. But during the summer, it fluctuates, because it can be 5/8 with 5 days on and 8-hour days. But, we could get a call or respond to a fire or incident, whatever you want to call it, like that. And then see you later. I can be gone for 14 days, 21 days, from anywhere from the local area where I work at all the way up to Washington or wherever, or even locally, we get a fire and it's just taken off. So then that 8 hours just goes out the window, and then it goes from 8 hours to 16 hours. And then in between there, where do you find time for yourself and your family and everything in between? It's like two magnets next to each other. Not really easy to do. But, I really enjoy my job. Really enjoy my coworkers. They get on my nerves sometimes, but that's within a job. But it's a good environment. And, you got to be a product of your environment. Either you can stay in this job and make the best of it and excel, or you can just sit there in armchair quarterback in back of the truck and bitch and complain about everything. Or, like I said, make the best of it. You signed up for this job. And we make our intentions known to people whenever we do that, as far as the hiring, because everybody thinks, they watch these movies and they see fire trucks and they're like, oh, they're going to pull the side of the road put out a fire and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes we do that, don't get me wrong. But 9 times out of 10, where the fires are, it's not exactly on flat ground. It's usually starts out flat. You guys know where I'm going with that. But it's a good job. Physically demanding, mentally taxing sometimes, but I would just say whatever job you're in or situation you're in that brought you here, thank you for coming here. We can come together and talk about things. This is an open environment. You can speak freely, bluntly. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'd rather people talk honestly and bluntly with me than sugarcoat things and a bunch of Willy Wonkas running around. Me personally, I try not to sugarcoat things because then it's just a sugarcoat is just as good as a lie. I'd rather be honest with things. And that's what I'm getting at with this next segment. As if you're in a relationship, man, woman, don't matter. Whenever you communicate things, communicate with intention. Don't just be like, oh, I'm going. I mean, you don't have to be like over, crazy about it. If you're going to the store, then just be like, hey, I'm going to the store to get some milk. But small example with that, like when you go to work, husbands, wives, as far as the husbands go, wives want to know where they're at, what they're doing, what they're up to, stuff like that. I've been married twice, but we'll get into that later. But going back to the communication with intent, not only do they teach me that with my job, but also guys or girls, it's also good to do that in your relationships. Somebody in my position, like with my job, or I'm gone constantly, or I work an hour away from where I live. So whenever I'm in a relationship, it's not like, oh, hey, I'm going to go put in 8s and I'll see you tonight. We can go to a movie or whatever. No, that's not the case. Because like I said, my schedule changes all the time. And being an hour away, things could happen between where I live and where I work, where the car breaks down, accident, helping with an accident, whatever the case may be. So with me, I'm learning, which I should have learned in my relationship. Maybe I would have been better off. But anyway, is like with my job, if I get in a relationship down the road, not in a hurry, but with my next relationship, instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to work, I'm going to be like, this is my communication with intent with you. So I'm going to go to work. We have this to do, just basically paint the picture for him or her, or whoever you're with. And be like, hey, we're going to work. We'll be in the field. We're going to cut trees. We're going to move brush. We might get a fire. We might not. Might be working late. Whatever the case may be. That's just my spill for whoever I'm with. Everybody's situation is different. If you work in an office, tell your boyfriend and girlfriend. Be like, hey, I'm going to be working late. We have this project, or I don't really know the office lingo, but just tell them, be like, we have a bunch of stuff that we need to do. And that way they know, be like, oh, or just prove example, be like, if you work in an office or something where you're around people all the time and all that stuff, just be like, hey, we're going to the office. We have a board meeting. I guess that's what people say in office settings. And be like, hey, at 12 o'clock, I'm going to lunch with Dave or whatever his name must be. Yes, we have a project we need to talk about. So then you talk to Dave, and then that way, ideally, whenever you communicate that with intent, your wife or girlfriend or spouse, whoever knows that whenever 12 o'clock rolls around, normally that's when you would talk to him or her about your day and how it's going so far. She'd be like, oh, he has a lunch meeting with Dave and they're talking about work. So then she knows not to sit there and blow up your phone constantly and be like, why are you ignoring me? So that way they at least know 12 o'clock rolls around, he has a lunch meeting. Maybe send him a text, be like, hey, hope your day's going well or her day's going well, just so that way they know you're thinking about them. But then that way they're not worried why you're not responding. And anything with life, doesn't have to be just work. Some people don't work all the time or stuff like that. People have lives, like I said, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. But same thing in your everyday life. If you're going to have plans, make that known ahead of time. Perfect thing to do, is just sit there with your significant other and get a whiteboard with a calendar or make a calendar out of a whiteboard. People do it all the time. And then that way, you guys can track exactly what day this person's having a meeting, or this person has to take the kids to school, or, whatever your guys' situation is. And that way it's on the calendar. And then that way you guys don't have a Tim Allen moment. Sorry, I'm binge watching Home Improvement right now, but it's a good show as a grown up because you actually learn a lot about relationships. And if you have kids, how crazy kids can be sometimes, I guess. But anyway, so then, she would tell the husband one time in one episode, I can't remember what it's called or when it was, but something about a dinner or something. And he was like, you didn't tell me. And so she kept telling him, like, I told you Wednesday or whatever. And he's like, I didn't know. And so she's like, I kept telling you and telling you and telling you. And he's like, well, every time you tell me something, you walk off. And I'm sure, man, wise, your husband or girlfriend does that. Because you talk to him about something and then you get sidetracked and then you start talking about something else, or you walk off to go check the mail or whatever the case may be. And then communication gets lost in the weeds. So as long as you make it known and then put it on your calendar or your planner or whatever you guys have for your organization chart, that way when that day comes or the day before and your wife or boyfriend brings it up again, be like, hey, I have a meeting or we have a dinner date or whatever on this day, and he can't be or she can't be like, well, I didn't know. And then you can be like, well, it's on the calendar. Or, send them a text the day before or a couple of days before. People check on their phones all the time. You can literally walk into a restaurant right now and over 90% of people would be like, because they're glued to their phones. So if your husband or wife or whatever, if you send them a text prior to that and be like, I didn't get the notification, then you'd be like, well, you're on your phone constantly. I sent you a text. So obviously you got it because you text me about dinner or whatever. So I let you know. But anyway, went back to the past thing. Communication is key. They say that in relationships. It's also true in life. You got to communicate with people, not just your others. Whenever you're going through something, you can't just sit there and have the pride ego and be like, I'm going to swallow this and this is on me. I'm not going to talk to anybody else about it. Because if you talk about it, not only are you getting it out there and then people know, so that way if you're going through something, they're not just short-tempered with you or you're short-tempered with them. Excuse me. At least they know you're going through something. And it might make you feel better knowing that you get it off your chest and you have somebody in your corner you can talk to. But make sure whoever you're talking to is like a good friend or spouse. Well, not spouse, because we're trying to talk to other people besides your spouse. But even your spouse, talk to them. And that way it relieves it off your chest or out of your system. It's kind of like releasing. You breathe in, you breathe out. Same thing with going through something. If you inhale the problem, but you exhale the solution. And whenever you do that, make sure you're not like just being short with them whenever they're caring about you and be like, hey, what's going on? You seem kind of quiet and stuff like that. But I've been there, somebody would ask me what's going on, and I'd just be like, oh, why is something got to be always wrong with me or something like that? I'm just a quiet person, the big old, whatever your excuses are. But that's what it is an excuse. And excuses are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and they all stink, and no two are the same. So, but anyway, if you communicate that and let your spouse, your friend, whoever, know what your intent is or what you're going through, then maybe they can think while they're listening to you talk about it and come up with a solution to help you. Compared to where if you keep it to yourself, you're not really helping anybody. You might think you're all tough and keeping it talking to yourself or not talking to anybody, especially yourself. I like talking to myself. I mean, I'm starting to get in the habit where I talk to myself a lot. And if people say, I feel weird around him as he talks or whatever to himself, then that's their problem. It's not my problem. It's my way of dealing with stuff. It helps me remember things. Because, the best advice you can give yourself or best advice you can get is from yourself because you. Everybody thinks they know you because, it's just like dodgeball where it's like, I know you and you know me and I know you. That little thing from Ben Stiller. I can't remember, but I saw a video about it the other day. But truly, nobody really knows you except for yourself. You know what you like, your pain tolerance, you know what your mind's thinking. And it's easier for you to sit there and think about things in your own head and then express things verbally. Because that's where I said you inhale the problem, but you exhale the solution. But just be honest with people. And I'm not saying going around calling people idiots or, stuff like that, even though some people are and they can be. But we all make mistakes. We all have problems. We all have things we're going through. And that's the thing to remember. It might be easy for you to sit there and call this person an idiot, or, they might not be able to do the job correctly. But maybe instead of armchair quarterbacking them and sitting there and passing judgment on them or whatever the case may be, why don't you sit there and coach them or help them figure out how to do the job correctly or up to your standards? But it's not good for people to set standards. I mean, you should have standards, don't get me wrong. There's a point. Some things you just don't do. But, if you're trying to live up to somebody else's standards, then you should start setting standards for yourself and see if the two meet. Because, if you just try and reach and try and get to that freaking escalator, or no, escalator, I think that's what's called, the thing in the mall. But anyway, if you're constantly chasing somebody else's expectations, then you just might as well just stay at the bottom of the escalator. Or a freaking treadmill. That's a better example. A treadmill. You can raise the incline, you can adjust the speed and stuff like that. It's basically like life, You start out with a little walk, you're feeling good, and then bam, work or something happens with your family or something happens with the kids if you have kids. And then, that's where the speed starts picking up in the treadmill. And then that incline starts going up and up and up. But I think through talking with people or talking to yourself, journaling, starting something like this, it might not be like freaking, famous, world renowned, like other YouTubers talking about mental health or whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm open to suggestions. It doesn't have to be just this. But anyway, you're chasing that treadmill with an incline like this, and all you're just doing is just going in circles, and you're trying to catch up. But the more you stand up for yourself and talk about things or do things for yourself, you can slowly raise that incline down and slow down the speed on the treadmill to where you're not at a freaking rabbit's pace or a rat race, whatever you want to call it, and trying to play catch up. You can do it at your own pace. And that, like I said, that incline will slowly come towards even and level ground and at as good a pace. So that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm slowing down my treadmill in my life. It hasn't been easy because I'm one of those guys who just want to get stuff done like that. But sometimes you just need to take a reflect on things and be like, okay, maybe I should sit back and enjoy my life. Because life's not going to just happen. You have to make things happen. It's easier for me to say that because, I'm going through stuff and this is my mindset about everything. But I don't know everybody's situation. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But if you want to keep it to yourself, then that's your thing. But just know if you keep it to yourself, you're not helping anybody, especially yourself. But I might set up an email here in a couple of days, maybe this afternoon. I don't know yet. But either way, that way, some people have some questions or comments or just want to talk about stuff that they don't want to leave in the comments where everybody can see their laundry. I'll set up that email and then you can just email me there and be like, hey, this is my situation. This is what I'm going through. And what do you think? Or do you mind if I just talk to you about it? Even if you just want to talk about it, that's totally fine with me. I'm the best. I'm not going to say I'm the best listener, but I am a listener. And that's one start. You have somebody listening for you instead of somebody you're trying to talk to and they just interrupt you and then they try and give you advice, and it's shitty advice. For me, I'll give you the best advice I know and the best advice I've learned from maybe whatever situation you're in, whether it's something I've gone through or maybe through therapy with my counselor before he passed away. Maybe I can help you guys pass on that as a coach to a student or coach to a player, whatever you guys want to call it. But the biggest thing is, like I said in this episode, if you take nothing out of it, just slow down your treadmill, lower the incline, find that happy medium. Don't be like two magnets, and then just communicate your intentions and be honest with yourself and be honest with those around you. Because your past doesn't have to last. I'm in recovery. I'm not saying I'm in remission because that sounds weird. But just know that there is help in people who've done worse things than you have. You might feel like the world's worst husband, wife, brother, sister, whatever. But just prove to people that you're changing. But if you are, change for the best. And just don't let people take advantage of you. You know, I've been through situations, like I said, we'll get into this in a whole spiel of things. But I'm not looking for anything crazy. You know, I'm just looking to way to vent my problems so I can help people hear them, and maybe they can offer a solution to me. Maybe they've gone through the same thing, or maybe they're going through something else and they just need somebody to listen to or talk to. You know, like I said, I'm open to suggestions on this channel. It doesn't have to just be like all depressing stuff or whatever. Sorry, I'm like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands right now. But anyway, you know, I'm here for anything. You guys want to talk about mental health? I know it's a big thing right now, and that's part of the reason, well, one of the main reasons why I started this channel. But there's other things we can talk about too. You know, it doesn't have to be all this stuff. We can talk about freaking mental health, true crime, video games, whatever. As you can tell from my hands, I honestly like tattoos. So maybe you guys have ideas for tattoos or something, or maybe I can give you ideas about tattoos. But either way, we're a community, and like I said, we're going to try and fight this disease, because that's what it is a disease. And taken from Dr. Fauci, or whatever that weirdo guy name is, you know, we need herd immunity. Not so much for that, but for each other, you know. It's either to come together and talk about things, and that's our herd. And then we'll build up that immunity to help with anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever your situation is. And, you know, like I said, this is an open environment. So if you just sit here, even if in the comments, you know, you guys want to start judging or whatever, but it doesn't matter what you do in this life. People are always going to judge. You can cure cancer, but then somebody's going to judge and be like, why didn't you discover it sooner? Or you can change who you are and they'll be like, well, remember this, you know, it's just going to be like I said, everybody's going to judge for something. The best thing to do is just not pay any mind to it and just be you. Because if you're yourself and comfortable with yourself, then maybe you'll be able to enjoy things. I'm the kind of person, I'm learning to get more comfortable on the outside than on the inside. Because inside, I'm just feeling like I can do whatever. On the outside, I'm quiet, I'm reserved, speak my mind faster than my mind can think. And sometimes people are like, whoa, why'd you say that? But I'm one of those people, I don't really care what people think about me. I'll go to the store, and I mean, you guys see my dark sunglasses. And if you guys stay with me throughout the episode, you guys will see that my sunglasses change like constantly. Sometimes they're casual like this. Other times they're going to be freaking the Willy Wonka glasses. Other times, if I can find them, they're the little brown circle glasses like Elton John wears. I call them my Eltons. But either way, you know, I'm learning to be comfortable on the outside than more so the inside. And it's easier for me to say that, but I'm trying to live what I teach or help. I'm not going to say practice what I preach because I don't think much of religion and all that stuff. But if you're a religious person and you found me, I'm still open to your, I wouldn't say, well, I'm still open. Everybody's entitled to their own belief system and stuff like that. And it's not my place to judge or say, oh, this person's better than that person, just like one religion's better than the other. You know, we're here, we're a community, we're trying to grow together. But, you know, in my past, religion and people like that make a diversion, or not diversion, a divide. And I'm trying to bridge that gap. So, going back to my thing. So, welcome. I hope you enjoyed this first episode. I know it kind of is all over the place. I'm still trying to figure this out. This is the longest I've talked on a webcam, so bear with me. And one thing I would say last is just going back to the episode. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, I'm sorry. Like I said, it's all over the place. I repeat myself constantly because apparently I have ADHD, but I don't know. I'll find out this afternoon because I have to go talk to somebody about that. Literally, not just frequently. But anyway, you guys enjoy your day. If the episodes are spaced out, bear with me because I work. And it's not like I have the luxury to just be like, oh, I can post episodes constantly, one back to back. But I'll keep you guys updated. You know, I have a Snapchat, so I'll leave that in the comments. And obviously, you found this YouTube channel, so I have a YouTube channel. And maybe I'll make a second Facebook page just direct for all this and not just one thing. And lastly, make sure you put yourself first, not last. So have a good day, everybody. Bye.